Well, a very good morning to you. It's Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program. This is AM Prime here at WESN and WESN-CC. Let's get into it. We're talking with Mr. Stan Huggins this morning. We began a discussion yesterday. It didn't work out. We had some technical challenges. And he's coming back to talk about the fact that thus far there are 35 road deaths in the country in the 4 months that we've gone through. We've 4 days into the 5th month, 35 thus far this year, and that compares with 31 the same period last year. What is happening on the roads? What is not happening, which is causing that? And he has a perspective on it we want to share. He's been involved in road safety for most of his life. We'll get to that in the second part of the program. Of course, we take you around the region. We will stop in Guyana in the first place, where there's a debate in the parliament now between the government and the opposition about who is responsible for the current state the country is in financially and otherwise. Of course, we have the staples. We'll tell you what the situation is with COVID-19, the figures this morning, the total cases, the recovered patients, the death toll, and the matters relating thereto on that. We also talking with, he's an educationist and a lecturer, a leader of a political party called the Green Party of Trinidad and Tobago. That's Dr. Everal Hossain. He's written a letter which appeared in 2 of the 3 daily newspapers. At least one headline was Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society, and the other one is that if we fix education, all else will fall in place. So that's the issue. He's saying that's the solution to the problem in the country. We have to fix the education system. But right now with us, Mr. Brian Baig, he's an attorney. The question is, he has a different take on what transpired with what led to the investigation into the blackout a couple of months ago. The investigators said that they found no one culpable for any wrongdoing. There was nothing amiss as to what transpired. It was an act of God what transpired. Mr. Baig has a different take on that. He disputes that, and he's talking with us about that at this point. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, Andy.
All right. So you say that you rubbish this conclusion that this was an act of God. They say, let me just read what the investigators say, and the point I make here in the piece, and I have in the paper this morning, that this was a team about which there was no query, there was no issue about the competence of the people. It appeared to be a team that was very well accepted, and so that there wasn't an issue with people's independence or anything like that, or people having any reason to want to fly any particular flag or bricks for anybody, as we say. They say that this was a genuine case of a system failure with no evidence of sabotage or malicious damage to any plant, equipment, or machinery. You say otherwise. Why?
Well, Andy, good morning again, and good morning to your viewers. It's a pleasure to be on your program yet again. It is. I listened to the minister, and I read the contents out of the report, and it is very disturbing where a minister would come and use an act of God. So the government of Trinidad and Tobago, who has been blaming everyone for any mishap in this country, any failure in this country, of any system, any institution, they have now gone to the highest head. They've gone to blame God now. That some tree, a fungus tree, caused this to happen. But what I don't understand, and what I cannot fathom to comprehend, is that you had a member of the cabinet who was seen via social media was buying a power generator way before anything happened. So how is it that a member of the cabinet apparently knew how long this was going to last, whereas you have a nation who was gripped with having a power failure? Now, the minister is also an attorney at law, just like myself. And if you come to claim that it was an act of God, there are many persons who was affected by this power loss, where they would have had appliances damaged, they would have had losses with their jobs. Example of that would be fish farmers who also complained that they lost a lot of their product, which is fishes. I mean, I'm the former chairman of the Seafood Industry Development Company, and I can tell you there are a lot of fisher folk that called me, hoping that I can be able to help them. So this is one way of the government trying to jump out of not having to be liable for a lot of things.
All right, but
So
the
I
description.
don't accept that view.
Yeah.
And even if they have to say it's an act of God, and I say it was some tree that fell on this on their system. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I'm saying that those were, that's the finding of the team, the Chandraban, Professor Chandraban Sharma and his team. They came up with that explanation. It's not the minister per se. He was repeating what the report said, and that's all.
Well, I am sure that this team obviously would have had to be put there in place, and they report to a minister. So before this report had to come out, this minister had to see this report. And I mean, you're coming again and you're talking about it's a tree. So you're telling me that there was nothing put in place to deal with this tree before? We have Ministry of Local Government, where I'm sure there's a regional corporation that could have been close by. And no one there that they couldn't go and ask them they have tree cutters unit. This TNTech themselves don't have such workers to do that. I mean, that doesn't hold water to me at all, even if it's in Australia.
Yeah, but these are the words of the people who wrote the report. This was a genuine case of a system failure with no evidence of sabotage or malicious damage to any plant, equipment, or machinery. Those are the words of the investigating team, not the minister or not anybody who had any reason to want to spin it.
What that shows, Andy, that report came out of that report shows that there's incompetence. And you must go at the head. And the head is the Minister of Public Utilities. The minister has to take full responsibility for this. And how to get away from it? Go with this report that says blame God. I mean, come on. Let's be real.
Well, what do? You either accept what the team that was put together to investigate, and the point was that there was no query about the competence of the people on this team, so that they went in this with a sort of a national sense of ease and acceptance that they were going to produce a report that would find favor with the public.
Right. And what this report has showed is that it's not the incompetence of that team, it's the incompetence, right, of an agency which is led by a government. And a government is led by it has a minister. And that minister is the Minister of Public Utilities. And he has to now shoulder this blame.
Well, what is the blame he's going to... What do you think is the blame that he has to shoulder? If this is what the report is saying, these are experts in the matter. One of them was a chief executive at the commission before, and Dr. Sharma. But I can tell you that, Professor Sharma, I can tell you that when I began in the couple of days after the incident, and I was trying to find who best to speak to, from a number of angles, that was the name that came to mind, Professor Chandraban Sharma. It turned out that he was the person selected to head this team. So it appears that there's going to be a great amount of acceptance and respect for what he has found, how he went about finding it, and he found that not in every case people were willing to come forward, and he said that there was an absence of a command structure as to who should take the lead in trying to find out what happened and coordinate what transpired. And then he said there were two agencies from which they sought to get information: the Strategic Services Agency and the National Operations Fusion Center. And he said those people appeared that as though they had something to protect and to hide, and they did not cooperate with the team. Now, that is a separate issue. But in terms of finding what they found, you're putting the blame for that, nevertheless, on the minister and the government.
It has to be on the minister and the government, because at the end of the day, this committee came forward, this committee was put in place, and this committee was put to find out what caused this blackout.
Yeah.
And what caused the blackout was an act of God.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, it has to be more than that. All right? Because again, you are telling me that if I find out there's some tree, right, that there was no way to find out if no one had any way of checking to see why no one went to deal with this tree. Again, I have to say it again. If this tree, which is a fungal-filled tree, are you telling me that there at no time the state agency was in charge of dealing with this situation did not make an application to have this tree cut? I mean, again, I have worked in local government for many years. Right? I was a corporate secretary in 2 corporations. You are telling me that there's nobody would have gone to a corporation and said, okay, we need this tree cut. Or does that agency, which apparently they're trying to say is TNTech, TNTech has nobody working there that can cut a tree? I mean, that's ridiculous. That makes no absolute sense to me. But again, this is a way to come out. So no one cannot come and claim anything. Because again, people suffered losses here. They had nobody to go on. There are a lot of people who couldn't be as how to say, very fortunate. Like a member of the cabinet, I believe was the Minister of Finance, to go and buy a generator. There are a lot of persons there who suffered. There are persons who can tell you who had medical issues, and when that electricity went for hours, it didn't go for a minute, it didn't go for 5 minutes.
13 hours.
This went for hours,
13
and
hours.
they suffered as well.
Yeah. So you're saying that this was a means by which nobody will be held accountable, and people can't come and take action against the state or against the commission for what transpired. You're saying that was a way to avoid that?
That is one way. I am saying that is one. I believe that is one way to get out of it. Further to that is that you are again saying this, and the minister, who I think needs to be a little more diplomatic in the way he speaks, right? Because at the end of the day, you are the man that the buck stops by. You are the man to ensure this doesn't happen ever again. What systems are put in place? And further to that, this blackout happened. This took hours, and you're hearing where there weren't persons that were able to do this immediately. Yeah. That's total rubbish. I have to say that is rubbish. Because you are saying that there was no one who would have been able to get this fixed quicker than what happened. No, that cannot be. I can't accept that either, Andy. Because again, this has to show that there's incompetence, and again, the buck stops with the minister. Because we must never forget, when this government came into office, not even in 2020, from this 2015, the Prime Minister, who was Dr. Keith Rowley, made it quite clear that everything stops with the government.
Yes. Right?
He said the buck stops with him, and he is the government. And this minister is a part of his government. So the buck stops with him.
I'm intrigued, as you say as well, that some time before this, one minister was seen purchasing a generator. So you believe that people had a sense that something would happen, and they were trying to protect themselves from it?
Either that, or when it did happen, we must remember this was for hours.
13 hours.
Obviously, a cabinet minister would have to speak to his colleague, and he would say, hey, this is going to be for a while. You better take care of yourself. But did Andy Johnson, were you able to do that? No. Was I able to do that? No. Was the man on the normal ride home on a maxi taxi able to do that? No.
Well,
it leaves to somebody to raise their eyebrow and say, how he know to do that? How he didn't know to go and buy that? And that is one main benefit from social media, is that you could see these things happening, and then you have to ask questions. And the public has been asking those questions.
So you don't fault the people who came up with the report, who did the investigation and came up with the report and decided that this is what transpired. You don't fault them for finding that there's nowhere to place blame, and there's no one to place blame on.
What I would say about that committee is I feel for them, because maybe that's the only answer they could have come up with. Because to say the incompetence that has been seen with this government, maybe they found that was the only way out. Sadly, I don't see that as the way out. Right? The minister has to understand that he is in charge. But clearly, when this incident happened, there was no one in charge. Right? Nobody was there, apparently. I think there was a member of the government who said no one is there. Right? So no one was there. No one was at the helm to deal with this problem. So what do? Let's blame God.
God has to now say,
well, who want to me now? I am to blame by this government.
Now, one of the things that you could look at as well is that the report found that there was no incident command structure which was in place, and there were no protocols established as to who should do what in a situation like this. Who do you blame for that?
Well, that again, that is disturbing. That is alarming, right? And we are seeing apparently there's a trend that is happening here with this government. That anything that happens, any incident that happens, there's no way to deal with it. And I'm not surprised that I heard that come out in the report. And again, who's to blame for that? It is the government to blame for that. And the person who is in charge is the minister. The minister must take full responsibility, right? And he should have asked questions immediately. There is a board of, if this is with TNTech again, there's a board of TNTech, there's a chairman of TNTech, right? Or should have been a chairman of TNTech. I heard that there was no chairman. I don't understand how there was no chairman at a point in time. I don't know if it was around this period. Then you also have a general manager / CEO. He needs to answer as well. Why this didn't happen, right? Why was there no systems put in place to deal with this? I mean, again, and this is yet another report that showed the lack of things happening within our state agencies. We saw it with a report within the medical fraternity coming out of COVID, right? Where, again, a report literally had to show that there are a lot of things happening that needs to be addressed, I should say, rather. Now we saw what happened with those divers who had passed away with the Paria incident, that there was clearly nothing put in place to save these men. So here now we have, where nothing was put in place to get this done. And who to blame for that is the government.
I want to take you up on your point that you think that the way in which the report was presented, it prevents anybody from wanting to take action for the inconvenience and probably the losses and whatever else they suffered. You think that is enough to prevent people from seeking to get redress, if they so choose?
That may be one main reason, right? And it clearly has showed that this government is incompetent. And anything with incompetence in this government seems to flow down. And it affects every institution.
All right, but the question is, if there are those people who feel, so badly circumstanced and who may have suffered losses to what extent, we don't know. The question is, to what extent the report and the conclusions of it prevent them from taking action to get redress in the matter? Is it possible at all that such claims could be held?
It may be, anyone can bring an action. It may be a bit impossible for them to get through, because one main defense in this issue, and they've gone with a major defense, which is an act of God, right? So that's why they can say, listen, it's not our fault. It was a tree that had fungus and caused it to fall on their systems, right? And they would say, listen, it wasn't an act of TNTech. It wasn't a worker that caused that. It was an act of God. So and again, this government has to, they blame everybody. Everyone gets a blame. So and now they blame God now. Poor God. I feel sorry for God today.
Okay, let's come to the part where the probers said that they found it strange that these agencies refused to cooperate, asking the questions that they were asking and not getting answers. Because, as I say, I quote here, they said that it appeared that these organizations they gave the impression of a need to, quote, avoid scrutiny of their actions or inactions as it related to the event. That both agencies appeared to be hiding behind a cloak of secrecy and national security confidentiality. What do you make of that? And what's your response to that? That is the Strategic Services Agency and the National Operations Fusion Center.
Well, I mean, Andy, I'm not surprised that has happened. I mean, again, it is disturbing to the point where I feel alarmed that these persons, they didn't want to come forward. They didn't want to speak because you know why? If they even come out and say something, then they would prove the incompetence that is happening in this country. The fact, I mean, I think the former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith, spoke about the fact that had that agency been properly working, right, which was the Operations Center, they may have been able to give a proper answer. But the fact that they didn't want to speak on it, because again, nobody wants to be held liable. No one wanted to be held accountable. So what they did? Well, blame God.
All right, Mr. Big, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. I watch you all every morning. Continue to have a good day. Stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago. Have a great day. Thank you, Andy. Have a good morning.
Thank you very much, Brian Big, attorney, on this matter. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we share with you the numbers for COVID-19 it's on this day. Stay with us.
North Coast Jazz 2022. After Family Saturday, the sky ignites with Blue Sunday, where Juve meets Pan meets Soca. Juve meets Pan meets Soca. A Juve experience featuring Hadco's Phase 2 Pan Groove, Mixmaster DJs, and powerful soca. Witness the expression of a new-found freedom with paint and vibes. Dance along to the music of our national instrument. Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday. A colorful experience. A tradition you won't want to miss.
Looking for somebody to jam with me and have some fun. Juve.
Sunday, May 29th, Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sangre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516. Change your fate. Start to win at life with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
I bought my last pair in November of 2021 and I loved everything about these glasses. I heard about Ferrera Optical Virtual Care when I posted to social media about the dogs mangling my glasses. As someone who works from home, I thought, why not give it a try? And I did. Virtual Care is the opportunity for me to have a video consultation with either an optometrist or an optician for my eyewear or my eye care. I'm looking forward to most following my virtual care visit the opportunity to choose my glasses. To have someone to personally curate the spectacles that I want, that's very exciting to me.
North Coast Jazz 2022. Day 2, Event 2. The big day is Family Saturday. And the biggest stars are performing on festival grounds. Michelle Sylvester, Ruel Lynch, Patrick Gordon, Adam Hagley featuring Tony Paul, Leandra Head, Johan Chuckery, Sharon Phillips, Freetown Collective, powered by festival band Dean Williams and Company. Each master talent will perform a song from Lord Nelson's wide catalogue. Saturday, Family, May 28th. Together again. Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sangre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Welcome back to the program. Up ahead, Dr. Everald Hussain, he says this is a violent society. He says it comes as a result of the kind and the quality of education we have in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be talking with him moments from now. But first, let's take a look at the numbers for COVID-19 on this morning, May 4th, 2022. what they say, 136,502, that's the total recovered patients, 8,637, the total active positive cases. The death toll to this point, 3,838. 148,977, that's the total positive cases reported in the country since we began the counting on March 12, 2020 to yesterday. And 347, the new positive cases reported in the 24 hours up to then. And 178, that's the number of persons in the what is called the parallel healthcare system treating with COVID-19. So those are the numbers as we get ready to traverse this day and see what comes up tomorrow. But for now, that is it. Also, we take a look at what's the Newsday poll, and the question is, now that Gary Griffith has launched his own party, what do you think are his chances in upcoming elections? So here are some of the responses. There are 4 of them. He has now started, so I'll give him till the next general election to gain at least 2 seats. Same boat with Philip. Last is not even good enough. But say what? I thought he had files to bust to call a snap election. Whatever happened to that? He has to join the PDP. And the final response, anything is possible. Trinidad is not a real place. Those are the responses to the question. Now that Gary Griffith has launched his own party, what do you think are his chances in any upcoming elections? Well, with us now, Dr. Everald Hossain is political leader of an organization called the Green Party of Trinidad and Tobago. He has written a letter which has appeared in 2 of the daily newspapers. One, the headline says that this is a violent society. The other headline says, if we fix the education problem, we would fix everything else. And that is part of the argument he's making here. What is wrong with the society is because something is wrong with the education system. Dr. Hossain, good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you look good. Let me just ask you talk a little bit about the Green Party before we get into to the substance of why we're having the discussion based on this letter that was published in the paper. What can you tell us about the Green Party?
Oh, the Green Party. Well, as one of the newspapers in Trinidad and Tobago said, I think it's probably The Guardian, it could be The Express. They said this was the least well-known party in Trinidad and Tobago. And in fact, that seems to be the case. The Green Party was created back in 2019 in I think it was September. And we launched in late October. And then we were supposed to continue our work in early 2020, but then COVID got in the way, and we were unable to participate in the elections. The first priority of the Green Party's transformation agenda is education, and we have this strong, rather firm belief that if we do not change the education system, we are not likely to change anything in Trinidad and Tobago. So our focus as the first priority is fixing education in order to fix everything else.
Yes.
I believe there's some feedback going on here. I'm not sure if it's because of my microphone or the speaker that I've got, but let's see if we can fix that.
Okay, because we're not getting any of it on this side, so something maybe.
Oh, very good. Okay.
All right. So, so the Green, to anyone's sort of basic imagination, suggests this is a party that is committed to environmental protection and doing things differently from how we consider them to be. That is part of sort of your motif?
Yes. I mean, traditionally, whenever you hear the mention of a Green Party, the focus is always on the environment. That is one of our critical areas of life. These days, climate change is going to ruin us unless we take very urgent steps to limit the amount of carbon we're putting in the air. To put it simply, it's a whole complicated process. Trinidad and Tobago needs to get out of the oil and natural gas business. We're very dependent on that in terms of our economy. But other countries in Europe are showing us how it's possible to release ourselves of this dependence and depend on other sources of energy. But even beyond the environmental issues that we will eventually have to focus on, there's a whole range of other development sectors that we need to focus on. And the first one that we have focused on is fixing education. And that is also linked to taking care of environmental protection and all the related issues linked to climate change. So I have this refrain: fix education, we would also fix environmental protection. But education is fundamental, and one can leap into a whole range of cliches about the importance of education. But we do strongly believe that until we fix education, we aren't going to be able to fix anything else in our lovely two islands.
All right, so you believe, therefore, you're convinced, therefore, that that's where we should start. And although you say that, you're speaking with us from somewhere in the UK, and that last major environmental conference with heads in Glasgow, Scotland, you're saying that there's work to be done there, but you believe that treating with education is even more important than what we need to do for environmental protection and sustainability.
Yes, there is a connection between both of those. A well-educated society, a society where we've developed people with what I would like to refer to as good character, those citizens, our people, will be able to appreciate the immediate radical actions we need to take with regard to environmental protection. And with regard to climate change. But education remains fundamental. To have people understand what we need to undertake in terms of environmental care requires that foundation of education. So yes, I do put education as the number one priority for fixing any number of issues that we've got in our lovely country at the moment. So when people talk about crime, I immediately leap into, you fix education, you can fix crime. We've learned that lesson from so many countries, especially in the Nordic part of the universe. I go back to Finland, I go to Sweden, I go to Norway, I go to Denmark, and we realize that if we fix education, we can make a major difference with regard to crime. I know people leap into talking about better policing, better prosecution of criminal activities.
And you say more jail time.
All of that is vital, but still what we found from the research is that better policing and even better prosecution doesn't necessarily make for a major difference in the decrease in crime. What does make a difference is educating our community so that we have people who, and again I use this phrase, people of better character. So the whole focus of education, I stress, needs to be on character development rather than passing exams and getting presidential medals and winning national scholarships.
And you're saying that we should de-emphasize those approaches, and you refer, because you're not the first person or the only person to point us in the direction of the Nordic countries, as you say. There used to be a lady called Camille Swap, who used to be a very fierce advocate on changing the education system, and that's where she was looking as well. What is it that lends itself from in that approach that we should adopt, and how difficult or not difficult it is to go in that direction for us?
It is a difficult task to move into that direction. I'm not sure the word is difficult. It's a challenging task. Can we do it? Yes, we can do it. Finland did it after they realized that the violence that they had in their society linked to two political divisions in the country, that couldn't be solved just by legislation and policing and better prosecution. What they realized is we need to change the fundamentals of education, and they proceeded to do that and change the society of Finland. Similarly, in Sweden and Norway and Denmark and several other countries in Europe. And I believe that we need to do the same thing in Trinidad. The challenge we have in Trinidad is we are stuck with this inherited British colonial system. We are reluctant to give up on it because we are so very familiar with it. I went through that particular system. I am not sure that I got a great education from that system. From an academic point of view, perhaps I did do fairly well.
You're a
But
PhD?
academics is not the main purpose of education. And so we need to go back to that whole theme of how do we develop a people of good character? And that's a totally different process than training people to pass standardized exams and to get presidential medals and national scholarships and all of that.
And how do we do it? How do we make the break? What has to be dismantled?
Well, the first thing we need to do is, I'd like to say, is get rid of the SEA exam. But that's a simplistic way of looking at it. In the transformation agenda of the Green Party, we proposed the following. We want to build 200 new schools. And these new schools would take care of children from the age of 9 months to the age of 16. After that, we have a different process for dealing with tertiary education. But the most fundamental period for developing people of good character, I would say, is from that 9-month period. People say 0 months, but let's say 9 months to the age of 16. All the research that I've looked at and all the work that I've done with the United Nations, especially the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, focuses on what happens in the brain with our children from the age of 0 to 2 years. That's an amazing period in a child's life. And then from 2 years onwards to about 5 years is another major development arena, and then from 5 to 7. In Finland, primary school doesn't begin until age 7. What we would have before age 7 is pre-primary school education. And the focus of that particular period in a child's life is developing good character. And there's a whole bunch of words that are associated with that. And I don't want to go into listing all of this. But by building 200 new schools and I have a list of about 13 different characteristics of what these schools would look like, and getting rid of what we now call prestige schools, which are quite limited to providing presumably a wonderful academic education for about 1,000 kids. And the 19,000 who do not get a chance to go to one of these prestige schools are pretty much dumped into lower quality schools. The 200 new schools that we are proposing be built would be national high quality schools. People always argue, well, why can't we make everybody why can't we make schools that are of top quality for everyone. And that is the intention of the Green Party by building 200 new schools. But we do have to get away from the inequality that is fostered by having this concept of prestige schools. And I think we can do that. People say, well, it's going to take many years to build 200 new schools. Of course, I kind of cavalierly say, well, if I give the job to China, they'll be able to build 200 new schools for us in about a year. We do not need to give the job to China. We can build 200 quality schools with a lovely set of features that would be considered top quality schools. We need a new curriculum focusing on character development. We need a brand new set of teachers. There might be some of the old teachers, but in Finland, teaching is a cherished, aspiring profession. It's very difficult to become a teacher in Finland, but you're very highly paid in Finland for carrying out that task of taking care of children from the age of 9 months to the age of 16 years. So I believe we can do that. It requires major investment. But again, I repeat my refrain. We do not fix education. We fix nothing in Trinidad and Tobago. The fundamental is fixing education.
And as you say in this letter, again, some of the elements of that new education system, you say, teachers still teach to the test, drilling children to pass exams and get scholarships, not to build character. We develop our sense of gender equality in schools. We develop our sense of compassion in schools. We develop our capacity for empathy. We develop the skill for conflict resolution without resorting to violence in schools, so that the education system would focus more on those things rather than on getting straight A's and getting into the prestige schools and seeking to win scholarships.
Exactly. I mean, I can repeat all of that. But, children spend most of their time, if you look at the hours in the day, they spend most of their time in schools. And this is where we cultivate good character. And when we focus on, I've spoken to so many teachers in our country, and they lament the fact that they are forced to teach to the test. Schools, even primary schools, are judged in terms of, well, we are a high-quality school based on how many of your kids did extremely well in the SEA. How many of our kids got into prestige schools? And that's based on the results of the SEA. So teachers, although they may hate having to do it, they are forced to teach to the test. Their jobs, their evaluation, the quality of their school is judged on the basis of, well, how well did we do in this awful exam? I was looking at the national child policy that was just repeated by the minister responsible for gender and children's affairs.
Diana Webster Roy.
It's a wonderful statement. The language is absolutely beautiful. The execution of the policy is I'm going to say awful, but that happens in so many countries where we have wonderful policy statements from governments, and I deal with this a lot in the UN system, where we focus on getting governments to enunciate these policies, but then we never quite follow up on what are we doing about executing the policy. But the policy for Trinidad and Tobago has wonderful language. And when I look at it, and then I say, well, what is it we're doing in our schools? And we talk about child abuse, and we do look at the most egregious acts of child abuse, the physical violence meted out to our children in some of those children's of the special homes for children. But when I look at something like SCA, one of the things we talk about in UNICEF is physical violence, and psychological violence. SCA is one of the most awful forms of psychological violence that we impose on children at the tender age of 10 to 11. And I say, well, that goes very much against what we have in the beautiful language of our national child policy. So once more, I get back to that refrain. If we do not change our education system, get out of the trap of the inherited British colonial system, which, as I said in my statement, it doesn't even work for Britain.
Right.
And it's not going to work for us. It has not worked for us all of these past
and it won't.
60 years of independence.
Right. There's some other things you say here that are pretty positively provocative. I wish we had time to go into it maybe another time. You say that we need to talk about gas prices. Yes, you say they need to be increased. We need to talk about spyware, but we are being spied on by both the PNM and the UNC. But if we fail to address radical transformation of education, I wish you could come back and talk about that at some future day. But thank you very much for now, Professor Dr. Everald Hossain.
All right. Thank you very much. And it was wonderful chatting with you. Take care.
Thank you very much, Dr. Everald Hossain, saying that if we have to fix the education system and fix the issue there, and we fix crime and violence in the society. Well, let's go now to our first look around the region. We go to Guyana, where News Source Guyana tells us about a debate in the parliament there about who is responsible, which side is responsible for the state of the finances in the country there. Take a look at this.
The opposition is not taking kindly to statements made by Vice President Mara Jagdeo blaming the former APNU-AFC government for the current financial state of the National Insurance Scheme. Mr. Jagdeo told Barbadians during a visit earlier this week that the National Insurance Scheme is now in a bankrupt state, and that should be blamed on the former government because of its decision to lay off sugar workers. But opposition member of parliament Valda Lawrence responded last evening and said the vice president needs to be truthful and ought to be reminded that it was under his tenure as president that the NIS was left in a cash-strapped position because of a number of bad and questionable investments.
It was VP Jagdeo who invested $2.5 billion of NIS monies in ordinary shares in the Berbice River Bridge. He further invested another $810 million from the NIS resources into this bridge in order to cover the non-performing assets in this entity. By his actions, this caused the resources of NIS to be further depleted. One must also not forget the CLICO fiasco, again, involving VP Jagdeo and the NIS funds, whereby some $5+ billion was invested. And we all know the fiasco of CLICO, which was placed under judicial management in 2009 and subsequently was liquidated in September 2010.
Ms. Lawrence also explained that despite the advice from the board of directors of the NIS at the time, including from Guyanese with experience in financing and investment, Mr. Jagdeo proceeded to invest the members' money in the Berbice River Bridge, the CLICO Insurance Scheme, and Leparkin, among other projects which dented finances of the insurance scheme.
All right, from Guyana to the BVI, where, listen to this, a government official has been brought up on charges of drug smuggling and money laundering in the U.S. state of Florida.
5 was arrested along with Olivan Maynard, the managing director of the British Virgin Islands Ports Authority. According to the charge sheet, both officials were at the airport to meet Mexican drug traffickers to receive a shipment of $700,000 in cash, which they would use to then smuggle cocaine from Colombia to the United States state of Miami and also New York. Now, in reality, the Mexican drug traffickers were undercover. Drug Enforcement Administration agents' records show that Maynard's son, Kadeem Maynard, faces similar charges in the alleged scheme. U.S. Drug Enforcement has now released a statement saying that the law will not spare anyone, be it the common man or a person of position or power, reiterating its commitment to fighting the drug menace It said, and I'm quoting here, anyone involved with bringing dangerous drugs into the United States will be held accountable, no matter their position. Today is yet another example of the DEA's resolve to hold corrupt government members responsible for using their positions of power to provide a haven for drug traffickers and money launderers in exchange for their own financial and political gain. Now, the governor, John Rankin, stated that these arrests not related to the inquiries initiated last year on governance and corruption. Rankin adds that he is expecting the results of the investigation to be published soon as well to avoid any speculations. Remember, the British Virgin Islands is a self-governing Caribbean atoll and is an overseas territory of the United Kingdom. Corruption activists have also accused its government of ignoring illicit flows and the flow of foreign money in the country.
All right, we take a break for the news at 7. On the other side of that, we continue our discussion with Stan Huggins, a road safety advocate in Trinidad and Tobago. We began a discussion yesterday. We continue that today. 35 road deaths in the country so far this year in the first 4 months. What's causing that? How will we stop that? Stay with us. This is AM Prime.
Coast Jazz 2022. You asked for it. Consider it done. Park in comfort at the Queen's Park Savannah and ride in style to festival grounds for the biggest family event. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Park, ride, enjoy. It's all about family. Family Saturday, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchishers. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby, St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
North Coast Jazz 2022. After Family Saturday, the sky ignites with Blue Sunday, where Juve meets Pan meets Soca. Juve meets Pan meets Soca. A Juve experience featuring Hadco's Phase 2 Pan Groove, Mixmaster DJs, and powerful soca. Witness the expression of a new-found freedom with paint and vibes. Dance along to the music of our national instrument. Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday. A colorful experience, a tradition you won't want to miss.
Looking for somebody to jam with me and have some fun. Juve.
Sunday, May 29th, Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trent City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
All right, welcome back to the program. We began a discussion yesterday with this gentleman, our guest, Stan Haggins. He's a very deeply involved road safety advocate. He's saying that we have to do some things to get us out of the situation we're in now, culturally, attitudinally, and otherwise. 35 road deaths in the country in 4 months this year thus far. And that competes with 31 in the same period last year. Something is wrong. Well, a lot is wrong, he would say, and needs urgent attention. Good to have you.
Nice, Andy. I'm happy to be here with you this morning and say good morning to your viewers on this TV station.
All right, so let's take it up from where we began yesterday. The question is, what is driving this? And you're saying that a lot is wrong, a lot continues to be wrong with the use of the roads by drivers and by pedestrians. Take it from whichever point you want to
Well, let's
enter.
put it this way, Andy. Everybody before you become a driver, you're a pedestrian or you're a passenger. And then when you reach 18 years, 17 and a half, you decide to be a driver. You go down to licensing office to get a driver's permit. Now, in other jurisdictions, what happens? They start to teach you road safety from grade 5. Because they know that when you reach 18 years, you go in and get a driver's license. It is part of your development. But we don't have any road safety education programs in our school systems to fix it from the bottom. We tend to fix it from the top, which has become very dangerous. Because why? Is that if you don't teach a child good road manners, how to behave on the public road, how to behave in the house, when he becomes a man, the practice continues, the bad behavior. So we have a situation in this part of the world that we don't pay road safety education any mind. We just talk road safety with our lips, but to really practice road safety, this doesn't go on in this part of the world. We have to fix it, and it can be fixed, Andy. The problem is the powers that be, which is the Minister of Works, and who are responsible for transport in this country, have to put down a good education and program. That is the bedrock to fix this problem. And I remember very clearly when they stopped the train in this country in 1968, the police used to go to schools and talk road safety. Every time there's a new school term, the police will come and they will talk road safety with us. But those were the days of look up and look down in those days. Now it becomes something more integrated, that you have to put a good educational program, do a syllabus for the school systems, standardize it so that we could look at it and we could fix a next generation to come. If we don't, we'd end up in the same mess.
And this is not something new. You've been, maybe it's new for people watching and listening now, but these are things that you've been making proposals and making presentations to various administrators over a period of time.
Yes. Well, yes, I have been knocking on the door. I did a program in 2004. I gave it to Minister Franklin Kahn when he was Minister of Works and Transport. And the programs get off the ground for 3 months. After that, everything collapsed. Because why? We don't take it serious. And even though our road is like a burial ground, we have a situation where we're still not taking it serious. In this country, Andy, what we have, put it this way, we have 2 traffic management branch. We have the police traffic branch and we have the Ministry of Works traffic branch. And this country is too small to have 2 traffic management branch. Sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So it's like everybody is in the dark. What we need now in this part to fix this education is to appoint a director of road safety education for the country to deal with our youngsters that is coming up in this part of the world.
A director of road safety education?
Yes, that's what the country needs now to fix this problem.
Now, what would be the basic elements of road safety education?
Well, that is to tell you that an educated driver is a better driver. An educated passenger is a better passenger. An educated pedestrian is a better pedestrian. Ultimately become a good road user. So the bedrock is education. It is the key to fix the problem. Now, the person, and I come back to traffic management branch, what the country needs is one traffic authority. And everybody comes under that. And that person who's the director of road safety education will be appointed the chairman of the road traffic authority.
Yeah, so there's something now called the Motor Vehicles Authority, not that.
Not that. That deals with regulation and whatnot. And whatnot. The police deals with enforcement, and the traffic wardens, they are enforced. That's the second aspect of road safety. Because road safety is 3 years. Education first, is enforcement, which is the police and the traffic warden. And there's a question of engineering, which is building of the roads to keep the vehicles on the public road. What we need to do is to appoint one traffic authority. We don't need two traffic. This country is too small to have two traffic management branch. And you see for yourself what is happening. Even though you have these two organizations, look at our traffic situation. Every day it is a nightmare for the simple reason that nobody taking a tab on the volume of cars that is coming and registering in this country.
We're probably taking a tab, but we're not doing anything to address it effectively.
Yes.
So we know how many cars on the road.
But we don't have the road space
vehicles, yeah,
to accommodate these cars.
When you say we're not taking a tab, what should happen? Should we limit the number of cars, the vehicles that get licensed to operate on the roads?
Yeah, well, if you, I bring it simply to you. You are a married man and you have a wife, you have one baby. But within that first child, you have one room. And then you go and make a next baby in the same one room. And it's the same thing, you make a next one in the same one room. There's no space. So before you register cars in the country, let's look at our road space. Could we accommodate all these cars on the public road? We have an average close to 1 million cars registered in this country. And I remember there was a guy in Singapore. His name was President Lee Kuan.
Lee Kuan Yew?
Yes. What he did, he recognized cars was backing up on people's driveway. And you know what he did? He went to the car manufacturers because they have a large manufacturing industry. And he said to them, listen, he's not going to register any more cars in the country. Of course, they have a nice train system. They have a nice bus system because there was too much cars. And he told them he will not close down the car industry. What he will do, he keep producing the cars. And he said, go around the world and look for markets and we will export these cars out of this country. That brought in a lot of foreign exchange into Singapore and make that economy very strong. And that is what he did. Now, because he recognized, yes, if he closed down those factories, he will put thousands of people on the breadline. And he said, look, that is why in the 80s and 90s, Trinidad was having a lot of B13, B14, and B15 in this country. They were coming from Singapore. And that was an answer to the problem because they didn't have the road space. They had too many cars registered. Everybody was getting to work late. Productivity dropped because why? You can't get to work.
And in our case, it became a means by which more people lower down the food chain could have afforded a vehicle.
Correct.
But it created other problems.
Yes.
Associated problems.
And it created that. And if the powers that be at that time had look at the situation and say, let us build more roads in this country to accommodate. What happens here, what we do, we tend to widen the road. And when you widen the road in this country, and all you're doing is widening the traffic jam, you're not doing nothing more. So the question, who is advising them as to how to fix the problem?
But what is our capacity to build more roads? Where
well, take for instance, if you're coming from Port of Spain and you're going to San Fernando, you have to go all the way east to Grand Bazaar to go south. If you build a flyway by Maritime Plaza, put it on spikes in the air, straight across by the boat sanctuary, and you drop that flyway north-south bound, you break the traffic in Barataria rather than going all the way east to Grand Bazaar.
To go south.
To go south. It doesn't make any road safety sense. What you're doing really, you're wearing down your drivers. That is exactly what you're doing. So all we are saying, instead of putting these overpass, so people to cross, and you see nobody just go on it, right? You could see it very clearly. Because what we have a society run across the street. And it brings the reference to that when you are Trinidadian, you go to a place like Barbados. And as you get off the plane, you start to run in front of the car. The Bajans say, look at Trinidadian going there. That's what the Bajans say. Because we have what we call like a bonksmina society. We call it bonksmina. In the United States, it says jaywalking. Yeah. But it means the same thing. So what we are saying, Andy, is that if we build that flyway from Maritime Plaza across Nemang and drop it by the boat sanctuary, you're going north-south one time. So you don't have to go all the way east to go south.
You think these are ideas that exist in people's heads somewhere, or that have been put forward to decision makers over time, you think?
Well, sometimes the people in authority do not listen. And we have a problem in listening. We hear you, but we're not listening to you. That is what we do in this part of the world. So the problem can be fixed if they would listen to the right people. I live in the United States for 20 years, and I see road networks. I see how it operates. And what I see is that we're not close to it, but we have the cars. We don't have the road space to accommodate the volume of cars on our public roads.
But a lot of the accidents happen on the highways and on these main thoroughfares and people speeding. So some people will say, well, you're talking about congestion, but how is it that the figures that we have are 35 deaths in 4 months? It's because of people driving recklessly on the highways and so on.
Most fatal accidents happen 2, 3 in the morning when the road is empty, Andy. Look at it very clearly. That is when it happens. You wake up next morning, 2 dead on the foreshore, 2 dead on the Valencia stretch, because the road is empty. Now, it happens because why? The guy probably is driving whole day in a traffic, and he tied up. So you get a chance to open the throttle, to run the car, and sometimes it happens into serious problem. Most of these times, things happen is that a guy go and have a couple of drinks, and he decide, well, listen, the road is mine, and he's going to hit the gas, and sometimes it happens. Why? He gets an opportunity to mash the gas.
All right, I want to come to in the remaining time we have, back to the issue, the fundamental issue. We were talking with Dr. Avril Hossain before he went to the news at 7, and he said that if we fix the education system in the country, we fix everything else. And you're saying that this is an issue that ought to be implanted in young people in school. There should be some integral part of the education system having to do with how we use the roads, and that will change attitudes and will change behaviors.
Correct. Because an educated driver is a better driver. And that concept tells me clearly that when we look at the situation in 2004, 2005, we had higher road deaths. Now, the reason why we slowed down is because of the pandemic. Few cars was on the road, so the road deaths slowed down. That is why it slowed down. Now that the economy is open, it means that you will get more road deaths coming on because more cars is on the public road. And that's a fact. Anybody try to dispute that, they need to get their head examined. A lot of things, when it comes to roads, carnage, slowed down during the pandemic. That is what it is. Now, how do we go about doing this thing? It is very simple. We could set up some what you call community road safety councils.
Community road safety councils?
Yes. And like Tunapuna, Sandy Grande, Port of Spain, you set up the community road safety councils, especially for those who are no longer in school, and so that they could go and get some good road safety education. That council will be responsible for dealing with their community. So we break it down to community level so that the community could go. You have used 25 to 30 years, you've never been to road safety education, you didn't get it in primary school. You could say, look, what I'm going to do. I'm going to go along by the council and get some free education. And it can be sponsored by the state, the Ministry of Works that is responsible. And put up these community road safety councils, and you will see, then what you're doing there, you're bringing it road safety to the people, close to the people.
What about this agency that was just inaugurated? Another, what is it? The TTRSC, Trinidad and Tobago Road Safety. What do you call it?
Well, that I know what we have in place now. That's a registered body. We have the Trinidad and Tobago Road Safety Council already registered with the Ministry of Legal Affairs.
Yeah, that's the organization that you
yes
piloting.
Yes, and I understand. I heard about 2 or 3 weeks ago that the Ministry of Works appoints some people on some road safety council. It seems as though we already have a council existing. Why the minister don't come to the council and say, council, you are the expert?
Is he aware of your organization?
Yes, we wrote him many letters to meet with him, but he refused to meet with us. I don't know why. This was formed along with the driving schools in this country, because the driving schools is the one who teach people to drive. That is why we went to the driving schools and established the Trinidad and Tobago Road Safety Council and registered in 2017 with the Ministry of Legal Affairs. So I don't know.
So you think something is wrong with the fact that the Ministry of Works or the Minister of Works has sort of instituted or led the move to create another road safety organization?
Well, it's a duplication in my mind. It's a duplication. What should happen is that they should come to the council and say, council, I want to meet with you guys. I understand you have an established body. This is with the driving schools, because they are the ones who are teaching youngsters to drive in this country. That is why it was formed with them. You could talk about this one and that one, but these guys on the road teaching young people with 17 and a half years to drive on the public road. So the driving school is what we need to do. All we have to do with these driving schools is to make some requirements. Instead of having just 3 years, you have a driver's license, you could go and open a driving school. Let's put some education in place for them, because they are the ones passing on good driving attitudes to the youngsters in the country.
And you do that?
What I do defensive driving. I do the course. But my defensive driving is based on road safety education.
Yeah.
Because defensive driving is basically paying attention. What it is road safety education. That is what the public need now. And we could say what we want to say. It's defensive driving is paying attention. That's the bedrock of it. Anybody tell you otherwise, right? They're fooling you up, Andy.
And you're advocating some aspect of proper driving be introduced into the general school system, the general education system.
Correct. Now, and once you do that, you find that the person will understand a stop sign. Now, the government put up sometimes at these four-way intersections where there's no traffic light. If you see a big stop sign in the air, you think anybody is look up in the air and stop? Watch it good. Because they're not trained to look up at that and stop.
Yeah.
In countries, first-world countries, what happens? When you see a stop sign and you don't stop, you get a ticket for moving violation. So they're trained to understand that stop sign means to stop. But anybody in this country, Andy, they stop when they see the stop sign. Nobody stops because they're not trained for that.
And you were talking about the imposition of the demerit point system. That by itself will not do the trick, because it is what you call it, punishment before knowledge impartition.
Now, the concept, Andy, that any school teacher cannot punish you if they don't show you the arithmetic. Now, they never teach us nothing about road safety in this country. You bring a demerit point system. Yes. Hear me. Now, your roads is in a mess. Trinidad right now is the land of the potholes. And when I was growing up as a boy, this is the land of the hummingbird. I ain't seen a hummingbird in a long time. But I've seen potholes whole day. It's the land of the potholes. You have no road markings. You're teaching people to drive with no road markings. Stop here, this is the line, but there's no line. Listen to me. You have no rest spots in the country. That if a guy say he's going to Maracas, most time when you go Maracas, nobody drinks seawater. What they're drinking is not alcohol, right? So everybody open the trunk and they're drinking. And then the police waiting for them down on the flat to give them a ticket. No, put up the rest spots in Maracas. So if you have a couple, you could go relax, put a police boot there, especially places like Grand Bazaar, North Southbound.
Yeah.
What you do, you say, listen, I'm going to put on a rest spot on the Grand Bazaar. Pave it nice. And what you do, you say, listen, you're tired, you're sleepy, because you're a human being.
Right.
Things can happen.
All right, we're going to have to that during the discussion. We have to leave it there for now. The time is up. But we'll continue talking about this because this is important. The fact of integrating proper road sense with the general education, I think that is a very significant intervention into talking about getting these numbers down and behaving as we ought to on the roads in Trinidad and Tobago. Stan Huggins, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, that's our broadcast for this morning. We thank you for watching. We thank all our guests. We tell you, in a half an hour or so, Talking Point with Shah and Small after the news at 8 o'clock. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.